My eyes were itchy, my nose was running, my throat was sore, my head was like in a cloud, and good thing I only had 170 miles to bike this day.
Somebody cleaned the vehicle and filled it with gas to ready it for the morning. Food and drink were prepped as Adam attempted to sleep. The crew was doing an amazing job without him even knowing it. Team A-Dub Club was at the start line at 6:15 a.m.
I was a crew member last year, so I know you've got to do a ton of things to keep the athlete ready. But when you're an athlete, I mean, you just don't think about that. You're just concentrating on racing, and my crew, they were just behind the scenes doing everything. They were just a phenomenal job. It was like clockwork. It was unbelievable.
Day 2 starting line, although 40 minutes from the hotel, was just across the highway from the Day 1 finish. It was biking only, so the athletes dressed accordingly. The starting temperature was 55 degrees Fahrenheit, so layers were in order. Athletes were lined up in pairs according to their previous day's bike time.
All right, day 2. I knew it was going to be a long race. The other riders had the same distance I had to cover, and I knew I was one of the stronger ones, so I had to see how I could do today. The previous day's wind had calmed down. Fortunately, it was in the same direction, and what that meant for us is it'd be at our tail for most of the day, and that was really going to help. My goal was to finish under 10 hours, and with the wind, I thought, yeah, that's definitely possible.
Once again, Steve King had the crowd count down from 10. The mood was slightly less intense, but the flashing lights on the bike seemed to speak the loudest.
I just had to hold my legs together for the whole distance, including those last 80 miles of hills.
Slowly, the riders began to file out. They were allowed a 3-mile grace period for drafting. After that, drafting penalties would be enforced.
I wasn't in a rush, so I tucked in behind the rider beside me, and I quickly learned that pace wasn't going to do it. So I pedaled to what I thought was comfortable, and I found myself in 3rd place, 2 riders in front of me pulling away.
It would take a few minutes, but soon all of the support vehicles would pass, heading for the first turn about 10 miles into day 2. Several crews stopped before the turn and clapped for all the riders as they went by in close proximity. As the riders hit the first turn about 20 minutes after the start of the race, all of the crews were lined up at the corner.
That was probably one of my favorite stretches of road. It felt like the Tour de France. We were all in a line, and all of the crew's vehicles were on the side of the road, and the crew was outside, and everyone was cheering us on. It was just electric. I loved it. And the 2 riders in front of me started to pull away. Couldn't see them in the turns, but I could see this crew right behind me trying to chase me down.
Over the next 30 miles, Adam exchanged places with a couple of riders, usually when he had to stop to use the restroom. Fortunately, they did too, so he would take them over again.
The road was relatively flat and the wind was there, and I felt like I was pedaling really comfortable. I was trying to maintain heart rate about 130. That way I could balance my carb usage and my fat usage, and despite all the stop signs and the traffic lights, all the way through mile 80, I felt like I was doing good. 2 hours in, I was averaging over 22 miles an hour, and I was ecstatic.
Then the hills. Someone had placed a sign announcing their arrival.
It's not that they were giant or steep or long, it's just that they were relentless. It was one after the other after the other, and I'm not a light rider. I did this race at 205 pounds, and the heavier you are, the more you pay on the hills. I'd have to work really hard to keep my heart rate down while I was going up, and then just get in aero position and tuck and go as fast as I could down the hills. I wanted to maintain my position.
Dewey Robbins Road made sure everybody was paying attention. This 12-mile out and back allowed people to get a good view of the competition, since you would see athletes both directions.
And it was on those hills that I slipped into 4th place, and I was surprised the riders ahead of me weren't that far ahead of me, and I was just happy with where I was, and I wanted to keep it up.
Enter Sugarloaf. Sugarloaf is a 1.3-mile climb with grades exceeding 20%. Standing alone, the hill is not that intimidating, but approaching it after 140 miles is a different ballgame.
As a crew member last year, I remember going to that hill and not really thinking that much about it, but as a rider, it's a whole different perspective. I've been cycling for 140 miles, a little over 7 hours, and you pull up to this thing, it's 1.3 miles long, the grade is over 20% at some spots, and you're like, are you kidding me? I gotta go up that? And you still got 30 miles after that, so I've got short cranks on my bike, and that makes it harder to climb hills. I just put it in the smallest gear possible, stand up out of my saddle, and pedal up. I had a crew member cheering me as I was riding up, and that's all I could do to get up that hill.
Adam survived Sugarloaf and continued his ride. Third place pulled away from him in the hills, but he continued to separate from most of those behind him. A look at his watch would show that he was still averaging nearly 20 miles an hour, but the hills would not relent.
I just remember miles 145 to 160, and it was just like, I feared going to the crest of every hill because I knew I was going to see another one right after it, and sure enough, it was just one hill after another. It just never ended. And I began using all of the downhills as a brake, just get my heart rate as low as possible.
Adam would have to be careful he didn't push too hard. After all, the very next day he would be faced with completing a double marathon run.
I was very aware of the fact that I had another day to race after this, and I'm worried to begin with if I'd finish it, and but I'm looking at my time on the bike and I'm doing much better than I expected, and if I kept that up, it'd be a really good day. Now, I ran out of electrolytes and my special drink halfway through the day, and so we had to improvise. My crew was putting 2 packets of restaurant salt in every water bottle. They'd stopped and got me Reese's and Snickers peanut butter squares for extra energy, and my crew absolutely worked their butts off, and I benefited as a result of that. I was a bit frustrated with all of the stop signs going down the last few hills, the last few miles before the end of the race.
When he turned left into the park finish line, he knew he had achieved something special.
But when I turned into the park and saw my time, I was just shocked. It had said 8:58 and change. I'd finished under 9 hours.
The next competitor crossed the line at 8 hours, 59 minutes, 59 seconds. In the past 2 years, only 7 Ultraman athletes have finished day 2 in under 9 hours. Adam finished 4th for the day and joined that group of elite cyclists, moving up from 12th place overall to 5th place overall.
I knew it wasn't going to stick tomorrow being that high on the leaderboard, with the run that I had to do, but I was so happy with my performance for the day, and people were like, "Oh, you're a beast on the bike," and I actually hung around and talked to some people, got a massage, relaxed for a few minutes.
With his toughest day looming just 14 hours after crossing the finish line, Adam knew he needed to focus on recovery.
We ordered pizza on the way back and took it to the room, and I just sat on the couch with my feet up and ate as much as I could.
His head cold was now in full effect. He was taking cold medicine as often as he could. He desperately needed to get some sleep tonight.
It was so nice having my wife there, and we could just, last few minutes a day, sit in bed and relax, or eat fried chicken. I kept the bedroom window open at night so that the room would stay cool, but I don't know what the deal. I still felt like an oven. It had to have been because I felt sick. I sweated, just soaked the sheets in the bed, and it just felt like this prenatal cocoon that I slept in all night.